What's up, guys? I'm coming to you from the Movement Underground, which is at East Coast Strength and Performance in Farmingdale, New York. And it's where you'll probably be seeing most of my videos going forward. So today's focus is going to be with the wrist, the scap, and the shoulder, as I mentioned last night. Just trying to figure out situations in regards to when this place is quietest to film the videos, upload them, and give you the best quality possible. So the first thing we're going to start with is going to be a wrist extension, Pales rails drill. It's going to be done in quadruped. So what I'm going to do from here is set it up in quadruped. I'm going to rock my body as far forward as I can into a passive stretch at the wrist, making sure that there's no pain on the top part of the wrist. So you'll probably get a little bit of a stretch on the bottom part. Going as far forward as you can. If you need to, you can bring your knees a little bit further forward with you. And then once you get that stretch, or you get to a maximal position there, we're going to start to apply pressure into the ground. So what I mean by that is when I'm here, rocked forward, I'm going to try to press my hands into the floor. That's going to be my Pales contraction, okay? So if I had my hand on the gas pedal, we're slowly going to ramp it up. Then my rails contraction from there is going to be me trying to rock my body further forward while trying to make my fingers as light as possible on the floor. So I'm thinking trying to pull the back part of my finger to my wrist towards the top part of my fingers. And again, if you need to, you rock the knees further forward. So we're going to start to ramp our contractions up, pressing into the floor at about 20% as hard as you can. And like I said, we're going to gradually ramp up as we go, so you shouldn't be pushing out a maximal effort right out the gate. Now we'll ramp that up a little bit harder to about 40%. And as you start to press into the ground, if there is any pain that becomes present, simply back off the range of motion a little bit. Press at 60% now. 80%. Now try to put a hole in the floor with the entire palm and your fingertips for 10 seconds. Keep driving down for another 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction. Try to lean further forward. Try to actively pull the fingers off the floor. Again, you won't get any movement with them. You'll notice I'm rocking my knees further forward to allow me to pull my torso further forward. Hold for another 3, 2, 1. Relaxing that new stretch. Nice relaxed inhales. Nice relaxed exhales. Again, there shouldn't be any pinchy feeling on the front side of the wrist. If there is, back off that range of motion. One of the keys here is, especially when we do our rails contraction, is to focus on the elbows not bending. Once the elbows bend, it alters the position of extension we're in, and then that becomes a compensation as well. So keep that in mind. Try to keep the elbows straight the entire time. When you guys are done there, we'll go through our second set. Another variation you can use would simply be turning the hands to you and then doing it the exact same way, but instead of rocking forward with your rails contraction, you'd be rocking backwards. Okay? So that's for future reference. You'll see that in classes coming soon. So you're going to start your second cycle in your newly acquired range. I'm going to readjust myself. Again, if you need to, you keep bringing the knees further forward based off the position you could get your wrist into. Once you're there, start to apply pressure back into the floor through the ball of your hand and then the palm pressing down. 20%. Now start to press a little bit harder to 40%. 60%. Again, if pain becomes present, simply back off that range of motion and don't press as hard. 80%. Now try to push that hand into the floor as hard as you can, 100% for 10 seconds. Keep applying constant pressure down into the floor. Keep pressing for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction. Try to pull the hands off the floor. Keep trying to pull that wrist further forward. Keep holding for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax there. Take 5 breaths. Again, as you work through this, you should feel the sensation on the top part of the wrist when you do your rails contraction, but it shouldn't be a painful pinching feeling. Take 2 more breaths. And then you can relax out of there. So again, that's going to be to expand range of motion. This second drill for the wrist is going to be to work on active control at your end range of motion. And we're going to do a passive range hold, which is something I've touched a long time ago. So what I'm going to do is I'll make a fist with my left arm just to get it out of the way completely. For a passive range hold here, I'm going to set myself up in as much extension as I can. And then the objective here is going to be, I'm going to try to lift the hand off the floor, minimizing the amount of change between the hand and the position it's in wrist extension when I lift off. So what I mean by that is I'm going to lift up, and then I'm going to try to keep bringing my fingertips towards my wrist when I lift. Try not to let the angle change to the best of my ability. And you'll see it changes a little bit, but you're trying to minimize that amount of compensation at the elbow and trying to gain active control of whatever passive wrist extension you have. So we're going to do 3 10-second holds per side here. So again, rocking forward to a position you feel comfortable. Before you lift the palm off the floor, start trying to lift your fingers. Now you're slowly going to bring the entire hand off the floor. Try not to let the angle change, and hold for another 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back down. Lean a little bit further forward. Again, try to initiate the movement by trying to lift the fingers off the floor. Keep that elbow straight. Lift and hold. Keep trying to bring those fingers towards your wrist. Keep holding for another 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to do one final rep. Again, initiate by trying to lift the fingers. Once you get that sensation like your rails contraction, keep the elbow straight. Try to bring the fingers towards your wrist. Hold. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can relax down. So a good assessment tool for you is, while doing this to compare active to passive range, is as you start to lift the hand, if you feel like the wrist gets into this position and you don't have the ability to get to here, you probably have pretty good passive range of motion, but the active control simply isn't there. So if you land on that wrist, it might not be the best position for you to be in currently. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, making a fist with my right hand now to anchor me into place. I'm going to rock forward as far as I can to a spot where I feel I can lift off from. Now from here, I'm going to try to bring the left fingers up towards my forearm. Slowly going to lift off and hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back down. We're going to go 2 more reps like that. Again, start trying to pull the fingers off the floor. hold, keep trying to pull that middle finger towards your forearm for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back down. We're going to do one final rep here. Start to try to lift the fingers. Keep that elbow straight. Hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Down. And then you can relax. So for our next drill, what we're going to do is we're going to break down a scapular car and dissect it into 4 different components, which are going to be scapular retraction, so pulling the shoulder blade back, scapular protraction, which is pushing the shoulder blade forward, scapular elevation, which is shrugging, and then scapular depression, which is going to be trying to pull it into your side pocket without side bending. We're going to go through those through quadruped again. If you feel like your wrists are a little fried out from the previous drills we did, you can simply make fists as you go through it. And what I'm going to do here now is setting up. We're just going to work through retraction and protraction to start. And what that's going to look like is instead of moving the belly button and the pelvis, I'm going to focus on everything from my rib cage up moving. So what I mean by that is the elbows are staying straight. I'm going to try to bring my rib cage to the floor with my sternum. So now this is training retraction, and I'm going to press away into protraction as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to bring the chest back down to the floor, focus on my pelvis, not changing its angle. And then I'm going to press away. And again, I'm just trying to learn how to dissociate without moving the pelvis here like a cat-camel. We're going to go for 10 reps like this. Pull the chest to the floor. And then push yourself away. If you feel like you're good with this, you can progress it to a push-up position and perform it the same way. With the same idea, you're trying to keep the pelvis still. Another thing to focus on is not letting the head come forward. So head is going to stay in line with the torso as you come down. And then it's going to press away. Nice and slow in both directions, trying to feel those shoulder blades move. We go for 5 more reps here, nice and slow. Try and keep the same tempo as you come down. And then as you press away. And the big focuses here are not letting those elbows move. Not letting that head change position, and trying to dissociate the shoulder blades from the spine. I'm going to go for 2 more reps here. Once you finish that final rep, you can relax for a second. So again, from a side angle, all we're working on there is pulling the shoulder blade back and then reaching forward without any deviation of the spine or the elbow. Now we're going to do the same thing for elevation and depression from the same exact position. Again, if you need to, make fists. Otherwise, keep the hands as is. Now, from here, what I'm focusing on is I'm going to think of trying to take the top part of my shoulder. I'm going to try to bring it to my ears, which would be scapular elevation. And then I'm trying to pull it as far away from my ears as possible without letting the elbows bend, which is scapular depression. As I work through, my body isn't shifting. Everything stays still. Just bringing the top part of the shoulder to the ears as much as possible. And then down to my side pockets as much as possible. I'm going to do this one for 10 as well. And again, as you work through, you're not letting the elbows bend, you're keeping them straight. As you work through, compare one side versus the other. Does it feel a little bit easier to shrug on the left side versus the right side? or vice versa. How does protraction and retraction feel? So we're just trying to get feedback in regards to how the shoulder blades move in this position. We go for 3 more reps. Again, like I mentioned earlier, focus on the head. You might feel like you want to shift to one side to compensate. Just try to really keep it still to the best of your ability while just moving those scaps. I'm going to go 1 final rep here. Shrugging up. Depressing back down. And then relaxing. So you'll see that breaks down all 4 components of the scap cars that we go through. It just dissects it a little bit more now so you can really pinpoint which range of motion you might be struggling with. And then that's a way for you to continue to practice to get that scap moving a little bit better. For our next drill here, we're going to take a combination of both the scap and the shoulder in that quadruped position. And then we're going to work on something called an ER and an IR hinge. The first one's going to be focused more on flexion and external rotation, while the second one's going to be extension and internal rotation. And you'll see this is going to be very similar to our swimmer hover, how we initiated in both directions. So the first option will be quadruped. If that's a little too difficult in regards to the positioning of your neck, you could regress this to prone, and I'll show you both positions. So in quadruped, what I'm going to do is left arm is going to be glued to the floor. Right arm's coming behind my head. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to lift the elbow and the hand up, hinge straight out, and then pull back in. The goal here is as I do it to not drop my head. My body shouldn't be turning open. Everything should be facing the floor. So again, it's lift up and out, and then hinge back in. If that's too difficult to do from there, simply drop down to prone, make a pillow with your forehead, and then you're going to work through that the same way. The reason I like this regression from prone into prone is because you won't be able to move your head as much, and you want to make sure that when you hold that position that you're not driving your neck forward as well. So just work through whatever range of motion you have as you go through it. We're going to go through 8 nice slow reps. And again, belly button faces the floor, head is staying still, hands going behind the head. Going to lift the hand and the elbow, hinge out, and then hinge back in. You're going to go for 8 nice slow reps at your own pace. Trying to keep that elbow as close to your ear as possible. And again, keep that elbow up high. Try not to let it drift down to the side. Lift up and reach out. Keeping that head still. You might get some cramping in the triceps or biceps as you work through this. I'm going to go for 3 more reps on this side. Press that left hand through the floor. Abs are tight. Towards the end of this, it gets pretty difficult, so just a fair warning. We go for 1 final rep here. And then you can relax for a second. So that'll be flexion and extension focus. For IR, same thing. The hand's going to be behind the back. And you're going to hinge from this position just like a swimmer hover. So I'm lifting up, extending back, hinging back on, dumping it down. And again, you can perform the same thing from prone. Just make sure you're keeping that head relaxed on the forearm again. So again, 8 reps, hand behind the back, lift up, hinge out, hinge back in, and then down. Doing it at your own pace. Just keep the movement slow, under control. Got 5 more reps. Try to keep that head still. Belly button facing the floor the entire time. Got 2 final reps here. As you work through this one, there should be no pinching on the front part of the shoulder. If there is, cut your range of motion off a little bit, meaning take the hand from here down towards your hips a little bit more. Okay? Once you finish 8 reps there, we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So send yourself back up. Right hand is pressing into the floor. Left hand behind the head. Hinge out. Come back in. Trying to lift the elbow with each rep. Head is staying still the whole time. You got 4 more reps here. And again, this should not be easy. If it is, you have really good working shoulders. You got 1 final rep. And then relax. And the same thing for I-arm extension. Again, if you feel you need to, regress it to prone. Focus on trying to pull that shoulder blade back. You do that by pulling the elbow back as you work through. For 4 more reps here. Keep pressing that opposite hand into the floor. Abs are tight the whole time. Got 1 final rep. When you finish that, you can relax. And again, those would be 2 components of that swimmer hover like we do, just breaking it down further, dissecting which parts you struggle with, and then giving you hinge drills to further progress from there. So now our last drill today is going to further layer that shoulder extension we were working on with the hand behind the back. And now we're going to do a quadruped shoulder extension hinge. So what that's going to look like is setting up in my quadruped position again. If you need to make fists like we've been doing, I'm going to take my right elbow and I'm going to try to row up as far as I can to the ceiling. So the goal here is to get the elbow up as high as possible, okay? Once the elbow's here, I'm going to try to not let it drop at all. I'm going to extend back as far as possible, and then I'm going to hinge back in, keeping that elbow up high. I'm pulling the shoulder blade back, keeping the elbow up high. I'm going to do this for 8 nice slow reps. Again, trying not to let the elbow drop to here. Keep it up high the entire time. Towards that end range, you might get a little bit of cramping in that triceps. Just try to fight through it to the best of your ability. Going for 4 more reps here. Squeeze that fist. Keep that belly button facing the floor, rib cage facing the floor, and head doesn't turn at all. 2 more reps. Keep that elbow up high and tight to the body. And once you finish that last rep, you can relax. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, I'm going to make a fist, squeeze it hard. Going to row up as high as I can while not letting my body turn out. Pressing the right arm through the floor, hinging back and forth for 8 slow reps. Keeping that elbow up nice and high the whole time. Try to keep the same cadence back and forth. You got 3 more reps here. One final rep. And then you can relax. That'll be all for today's class. Again, thank you for your patience with everything. Just trying to figure out my situation in regards to what times work best for filming, where to film exactly. So I think I'll be doing most of my stuff in this room. From a training standpoint, I'm also going to try to get Joe in here as often as possible. We're about 45 minutes away from each other. But again, we'll try to make it work to give you some more hands-on coaching, me coaching him coaching me, vice versa. If you have any questions, drop them in the Facebook group or email us, and we'll get back to you in regards to our feedback or any suggestions you might have. We're open to listening to. Thanks, guys.